Yo, welcome to This Can't Be Adultin, the podcast where two guys who probably should have it all figured out absolutely don't.
Careers, money, relationships. No one handed us a manual, so we're figuring it out the only way we know how, with real talk, deep dive, and a whole lot of laughs.
I'm Herb.
And I'm Derek. And if you're out here wondering, am I doing this right? Trust us, you're not alone.
So hit play, relax, and let's figure this out together.
Yo, what's going on? What's going on? Welcome to the This Can't Be Adultin podcast. I'm excited to be here. I'm one of your hosts, Derek. I'm out here with Herb. Herb, how we doing today, man?
Good, man. This has been a long time in the making.
Long
I think
time.
it's something that we've talked about for a while. So for us to finally hit record and be bringing this to you guys, I'm really excited.
I'm excited. I'm a little nervous, though. I'm a little nervous. That is the truth. Because we've actually been planning this out for like 2 months now. And that's actually a really good segue into letting you all know what's going on here and introducing you to me, Derek, and to Herb and who we are. Who we are, obviously, as individuals, how we've met, and really kind of what drove us to start creating and making this podcast. So we want to cover all those bases here today. And secondly, we want to thank all of y'all who are even watching or listening for joining us. This Can't Be Adultin. We're hoping this is going to be a good journey for the both of us.
Yeah, absolutely. It's something we look forward to just letting you guys know, why we're coming to you guys, kind of how we got here and where we kind of, see this thing going. And hopefully it's we have you guys for a long ride here.
100%.
Something beautiful.
I love it. Yo, Herb, so let's kick things off, man. We're going to do this a little bit interview style right now. Herb, let the crowd know. Let the people know. Who is Herb? Where you from? What brought you here? Like, people want to know. People are asking questions out in these streets, man.
Absolutely. So thank you, Derek, for kicking it over to me. Let me tell you guys about the beautiful person that's in front of you right now. So my name's Herb, obviously, like the spice. That's what I always like to tell people, Herb like the spice. But I'm from Arkansas. If you can't hear this southern accent that I'm giving to you, this beautiful southern dialect.
Shit's thick as fuck.
Man, I grew up small town Arkansas. I grew up around all my family. I still go back, same neighborhood, very nostalgic, small town in central Arkansas. And your boy right here was blessed, I will say, when I was younger as an athlete, had a little athleticism in my bones. And that afforded me the opportunity to go on to play football at University of Iowa. So got out there, got my education, played a little ball. You can Google me. Don't worry. We might be dropping some highlights on these tapes here and there. So you may even see your boy doing some things. But from that, moved out to L.A. after school. Really thought that your boy thought I was going to be on the big screen.
He thought he was going to be a movie star. I still think he believes that.
I don't even want to rebuttal you or disprove you, but you might be on something.
That's that confidence, man. That's that confidence. I love it.
Blind confidence. But then after that, man, your boy back in 2009 kind of got hit with a little bit of reality. A lot of us at that time, you understand, 2008 and what that was like. So your boy made a decision, moved from L.A. to Austin, been in Austin since 2009. About 16 years, so your boy's a real Austinite right here, right now. As you can see, we got our mascot.
Yeah, you can't deny it. Yeah, that's how you know this is some real life shit. We got my dog Choco. We'll introduce her at some point, but she's gonna be up in the video a lot.
Absolutely, but yeah, brought me to Austin. Got into the tech field around 2013, and that's kind of where Derek and I's journey kind of links up. And that's just kind of like the baseline about myself. Young Southern boy, moved here from L.A. Kind of been in Austin for a little bit.
Love that.
The tech field, and that's how Derek and I met.
Man, that's a versatile individual right there, man. My man said small town Arkansas, then he went to Iowa, then he went to L.A., and he was out in these streets in Austin. Dude's been everywhere around the world and back, man. Hey, but a lot of those experiences in those places have obviously molded this man into who he is today. And I can say he's a really good friend of mine, but we won't get too sentimental. That'll happen in some other episodes. And Herb, we're definitely going to dig into your past and particularly your childhood and how you grew up and how that relates to some of the questions you and I always be asking about life and why shit the way shit is. So, folks, you're going to be hearing a lot of good conversation around that moving forward. But let me talk a little bit about, that sounds really into myself, but let me introduce myself.
I'm a boy Derek.
Never me, never that. So Derek, I'm born and raised in in Rhode Island, right? Stark difference. I'm a Northeast boy, New England boy.
Damn Yankees.
Damn Yankees. Even though we hate the Yankees because technically we root for Boston teams, but everybody that's not from the Northeast calls everyone from the Northeast Yankees. But if you're from New England, you don't want to be called a Yankee. That's just the reality of it. But born and raised in Rhode Island to immigrant parents from Colombia. My mom and dad are both born and raised in Colombia, Medellin, Colombia. Shout out to that. Big shout out to that. So I'm first generation here. Moved around to certain places, different cities within Rhode Island, which isn't that big of a deal because Rhode Island is a small state in the Union. It takes an hour to drive north to south. It takes 50 minutes to drive east to west.
Fun facts over here.
Fun fact. So I pretty much grew up in Central Falls, Rhode Island, and moved over to the town over Pawtucket and graduated from Pawtucket.
You hear that accent?
Yeah, a little bit. When I graduated from high school, I actually went to school up in Boston University, Go Terriers. I played soccer there. Captain of the soccer team, won a conference championship. Let's go, baby. We're going to be out here living our glory days, Herb and I, man.
Man, I mean, the fact you heard my boy just say he went to BU to play soccer. Come on, guys.
Football, baby. Football.
Who are these guys?
But, yo, man, BU was a hell of an experience. And kind of when I graduated, I didn't really know what I wanted to do. Ended up out in Washington, D.C., folks. I ended up working in politics for 2.5 years, not making policy or anything like that. I was a lowly staff assistant and, pushing papers and stuff for a United States senator. But it was a hell of an experience. And I will say a lot of the topics that you'll hear us talk about, a lot of the passions that you'll hear from me stems from my time on Capitol Hill and kind of understanding how politics and policy works in this country. It pretty much sparked this passion and hunger in me to really understand how we operate the way we operate, not just as a country, but as individuals in this country. So, unfortunately, public sector doesn't pay well, Herb.
It doesn't.
I don't know if you've ever worked in the public sector. I don't think you have, but it don't pay well. And so your boy was looking for money because that's what this country tells you is you got to go look for money. And that's when I got into sales. I moved into the private sector. Started my sales career in 2010, so it's been about 15 years. Moved back home to Rhode Island to live with my parents and was working in tech sales out of Massachusetts for 2.5 years. And then I ended up out in Austin, applied to a position within my company in Austin, moved out here in 2013. And like Herb said, that's how I met Herb. We ended up at the same company. And we'll get into that here in a little bit, but I think that's a good pause as to kind of who we are, I guess, on a surface level, because I think that question is really deep, Herb.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. We're definitely going to dig into ourselves a little bit more, but that's just a very baseline of a timeline of how we got to be sitting here on this couch in front of you guys and why we thought, we should do this podcast and what made us feel like, hey, are we even, as Derek said in the intro, are we doing this right? And what we found out is that it's a lot of us in the same position, think the same way we do. So we hope that we can give you some guys something, not saying that we're therapists. This is, as we make the disclaimers, we are not doctors. This is for entertainment value only.
Entertainment value only. Because we're going to sound like scientists. We're going to sound like politicians. We're going to sound like everything in all these episodes. We are not.
There has been no science behind any of my theories other than in my head, but I promise you they have not been disproven. So that's our disclaimer. But like I say, man, we really wanted to bring this podcast to you guys just because, we're here. I'm almost 40. I'm the older of the two of us. So again, my words are wise. Of the two of us, and we just had a lot of questions.
He's got me by 3.5 months. It ain't that serious. Now, real quick, Herb, because I think we're going to segue into a really important part is into why we are doing this and why we think anyone really gives a shit about what we're going to say. But before we go into that, I do want to have a little bit of fun, and I do want to talk about the day we did meet.
Oh, man, that's a good story.
We do got to talk about the day we did meet because I actually didn't know the details behind what was going on in Herb's head when we met. And so I'm going to set the stage, and I'm going to let you know. So when I moved out here, I won't name the company that I moved out here with, but big tech company, sales company, and I moved out here to be a liaison between my company and the company that Herb worked at the time. So, the first month I was out on the floor meeting a bunch of reps, and naturally, as a brown man myself, as a minority in corporate America, you start seeing and you can easily eye those who are also non-white folks, non-minorities, black and brown people. You give each other the eyes like, what's good, what's going on? About 4 weeks in, went out on a Wednesday night because that's what we used to do. We used to be reckless on Wednesday nights.
Savages. We're going to have stories for you.
Well,
savages.
Stories. Some of the reps were like, yo, we're going to go pregame at this apartment. Come through. So I pulled through. And I seen Herb. He had just got done with softball or some shit like that. He came out. I'm like, oh, what's up, man? I see you out on the floor. What's up? Dapped him up, dapped me up. It's cool. We all got drunk. We all at work the next day. But that's not the full story because Herb in his mind was obviously wanted to say what up, but he was thinking something else. So I'm going to pass it over to Herb to see what he was thinking about that.
Again, I told you guys I'm from small town Arkansas. I've only been around white, black, and brown. Derek, when I first saw him, he wasn't really speaking his Spanish at the time, so I just assumed that he was black. However, if you see Derek's hair texture, you will understand it's not necessarily the same hair texture of a traditional African-American male like myself. So I just assumed he was the black dude that had that shit in his head. And that's how Derek and I met. That's why we tell this story is that I always look at Derek as the black dude with that shit in his head.
Yeah, so the best story, man. That shit cracks me up, man. But that's true talk right there. I'll never forget that. We went out on West 6th. I remember we was at Kung Fu. Had a hell of a time. And then Herb and I have actually been really, really good friends since then. In the beginning, more of acquaintance, more of like we catch each other when we're out. But a few years later, I ended up moving into, we'll call it a frat house for all intents and purposes. Shout outs 501 East Asney.
Well, if you know, you know.
Oh, if you know, you know. And Herb was just there all the time because that's all we did was party with me and my roommate. So mind you, we was in our 20s, so acceptable. Or is it not? Or is it still acceptable doing your 30s? Stay tuned. We'll have a conversation about that too. But yeah, ever since then, Herb and I have been really good friends. And I think what allowed us, what's the right word to say, why we gravitated towards each other, especially now in older age. We were a little bit older than a lot of the folks we worked with at the time. And by I say little, we're probably like 3-4 years older. So we're right around the same age. Herb and I are on the corner, 40's right around the corner. We're both 39-year-olds. Like Herb said, he is the older one, old bastard. He turns 40 in July. I turn 40 in October. And we're in the same place in life. And we've always kind of been in the same place in life, not just from an age perspective, but like really from just like a life, yes. a career.
A lot of similarities.
A lot of similarities from that perspective. So Herb, giving that platform that I'm allowing you to jump off of, what made you want to have this podcast? What made you want to tap me on the shoulder to do this podcast too? I'm acting like I've been chosen or something, but we'd love to talk about that, and let's have a conversation around that because I would gladly talk about what I want to do this as well.
Yeah, I think it kind of goes back as we became more and more friends. We started having more and more conversations, like deep conversations, and realized that there's a lot of things that we came from very similar backgrounds, a lot of very similar experiences. However, when we start having these conversations, a lot of times, although we both are, very similar in some ways, we don't always see eye to eye on a lot of conversations.
Very true.
And I think that's important, but it's also important that, the reason why it's really made a lot of sense to me is that, I think there's a lot of conversation that you and I have had that even when I go have conversations with other friends, especially going back home and speak with other people in my culture, like these are some of the conversations that I think they would love to hear. And these are some of the things that they're wondering about as far as like, as they've gotten older and what does figuring it out, what does adulting look like? Because you and I run in a circle right now, I would say, where a lot of, traditionally speaking, a lot of our friends a lot of us, even ourselves, are considered what people would say stereotypical successful. Yeah. As if from the outside, it would look like we have it all figured out, quote unquote. However, you and I had these conversations and we have it no more figured out than anybody doing any other job or any other profession or anywhere else in the United States, or let's say the world, even at our age, is coming into like this quote unquote midlife crisis age. So I felt like us having these conversations, internally, and then us having these conversations, with each other, we realized like these is a lot of the conversations that people are having outside of, in our demographics. And I feel like this is like something that we can speak to. And we have a lot of value that we could bring to these topics and conversations. And even if it's not a advice that we're giving, at least it's an experience or a perspective that you may not have had. So I think this is a key to allow us to be able to do that, bring our perspectives, and maybe somebody's going through this or maybe somebody's seeing this, and maybe it's something they could take away.
I'm going to definitely co-sign on that because I think a lot of what you just said is 100% how I feel. And obviously, considering we're both here sitting this together and putting all this time and effort to kick this off, we're obviously on the same page here from that perspective too. For me, it's also very basic. I think Herb and I are good conversationalists. I'm gonna be honest with you, right? And there's a level of confidence that I have in that, that we're good conversationalists. And I'm like, yo, this is something that we can actually do. And I think people would listen to, because we can actually flow and have a good talk about it. The other piece is that for me, from a more personal perspective, as I've gotten older, I've sought out more and more intellectual dialogue and intellectual discussion, more so than I did when I was younger 10 years ago. Because when it was 10 years ago, even 5 years ago, we were all about, and let me not say we as in you, let me not clump you in my strategy. I'm sorry, in my category, even though you might agree that you might be in that category. But like, I used to just want to party all the time. You used to always drink. But as you got older, you start realizing shit. And you start understanding what actually matters in life. And then you also start gaining the confidence to question what the status quo is, or what society, family, culture tells you is the wrong thing to do. And so you start looking at it, you're like, wait a minute. Is everyone out here doing this the right way? Am I doing this the right way? And I think you and I, whenever we do get together, we start peeling away at some of these conversations and some of these topics.
Yep,
and to
absolutely.
Herb's point, the reason why I appreciate Herb so much is because for the most part, on important things, on morals and on values, we're very much on the same page. And so I love having conversations with like-minded people, but like-minded people doesn't mean that you agree on everything. And I promise you, there's shit Herb and I do not agree on. But it's not like that murder shit, don't agree on type shit, but it's just like the nuances of how things are possibly viewed, how things should be perceived. And I just think being able to have a conversation with a like-minded person that you can disagree with always turns into good content. And to your point, I think there's a lot of people out here that are seeking these conversations, and a lot of people that are in our position, like you said, that are almost in their 40s, and they're like, yo, I don't know what the fuck I'm doing.
Man.
I don't know what I'm doing, because to be honest with you, I don't know what the fuck I'm doing.
Yep.
And I think it's okay to not know what you're doing, and also understand that, the definition of success is completely subjective.
Oh, absolutely. And I think that's something that we're both realizing is that, what success looks like to us on a day-to-day basis is very drastic to what success looks like when I go back home to Arkansas. Like if I go back to Arkansas, to them, I couldn't be any more successful per se. But then I come here to Austin, I'm just average. I'm just like all my other friends.
So, question: you're talking about, we're moving into this topic about success. When you talk about success in this in this frame, what type of success are you talking about? Are you talking about career aspirations? Are you talking about personal success? Are you talking about adulthood success? Are you talking about all of it encompassing? Can you elaborate more on that?
Yeah, I think that's a great question that you bring up, because I think as I've gotten older, success has been built on or predicated by being like financially driven. Like when we say success, it's like, oh, okay, so who's making the most money, who has the best career, that's success. We're not, who has, who has a home, who, we taking all these assets, but it really just comes down to like financial freedom per se, or like success for our profession and career. So when I'm saying success, that's what I'm speaking to when I'm defining success. So I think that's a great question there, because success is definitely what I'm saying right now. As I've gotten older, I feel like the only thing that I feel like really matters is how are you doing in your profession? How much money have you made?
Yeah, that's
Unfortunately,
that's kind of what's been beaten into us from a very young age. Now, I'm curious to know, as a young boy growing up in Arkansas, where did you get those messages from? Was that from friends, parents, family? Was it from teachers? Like, where'd you get this message of success being, how much money are you going to making? What type of career you're going to have?
I think that came from my parents. Like, and I'll say this: like growing up, even though I grew up around a small town, all my family like a huge family. Like, if you think like a southern town with a big family, that's kind of what my family was. My grandmother, RIP, was the matriarch of the family, and we just had a huge family. So I grew up around all of my cousins, all of my relatives, uncles, things like that. But even in that aspect of it, I was one of the few in my family who came from a 2-parent home. And my parents were heavy on me about staying out of the streets. This is talk about growing up in the 90s, early 2000s. So this is back when we were dealing with the drugs and heavily in our neighborhood. There was a lot of drug dealing going on. Not a lot of crime or anything because it's all family, but just staying out of the streets, make sure I was going to school. I never had any aspirations of going to school to play sports or anything like that. So that just kind of fell by the way, and that was just something that just I was able to do as I got older. But where I feel like got that pressure really was just coming from my parents. Like they were not gonna just let me essentially go out into the streets and do what I wanted to do. They ensured that I was gonna go to school, get an education, get out and get a good job. And that's what kind of was instilled in me. I mean, I'll ask you, like, is that kind of how did you grow up with that?
Yeah, no, I think both similar positions. A lot of that was driven into me by my parents. And I think a lot of the reason for that was because my parents were both born and raised in Colombia. Yep. And so they emigrated out here. So for them, they wanted to make sure I did better than they did.
Yes.
And they wanted to make sure that I didn't really embarrass them, is really what it came down to. So I was very much instilled. And for those that might be watching that know my parents, y'all know my parents. My parents are great human beings, but they're also very critical because they do want the best for me. And so there was a lot of push for them to say, hey, do well in school so you can, so you can buy a house. One thing I vividly remember from my childhood that I used to do with my parents at least twice a month is we used to drive to this city called Lincoln, Rhode Island. Now, Lincoln, Rhode Island is a very rich city, very white city. And it's actually where a lot of the New England Patriots buy houses that play for the New England Patriots.
Okay.
Big ass houses. But it's 10 minutes from where I'm from because Rhode Island's so small.
Yeah.
So you can go from like literally, lower income, socioeconomic, impoverished city, and then 10 minutes later you're in Lincoln. And we used to drive that 10, 15 minutes to Lincoln on a Sunday and go look at the nice houses. And, my parents used to be like, yo, one day you're going to get a house like this. And this shit's going to be bad. And so from a very young age, that was instilled in me that, like, that's what success is.
Yep.
You got to go get that house.
Yes.
You got to go make good money so that you're not renting an apartment.
Yep.
Because I grew up in an apartment.
Okay.
Me and my parents grew up in a two-bedroom apartment in Central Falls, Rhode Island, which is super tiny. My dad worked at a factory his whole life. My mom, she worked as a secretary at two nonprofits. And my dad stayed at his job. He just retired from his company. He was there for like 35 years. He just retired a couple years ago. And my mom ended up working for the government after, which was good. So they did really well. But in the middle of high school, my parents actually saved up the money to buy a house. So it was like one of those things where growing up, to me, success was like a house.
Yeah. Yep.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It was like a house. It wasn't an apartment. You didn't want to live in an apartment. It was a house. So it was a really strange thing. But I also think just my personality, every person's born with a different personality, and you really can't change that. And so as much as my parents pushed me, I just had that personality too of like, I'm just going to be a goody two shoes. So I was kind of a nerd. Like I played soccer. I was good, but I was always studying. Yeah. I was always just getting good grades. And, for me, it was like, I'm just going to do this so I can be less of a hassle for my parents because my parents already scared the shit out of me. So
Yeah. Man, it's so funny you say that because you saying you grew up, at an apartment and then you went and bought they've saved up, purchased a house. Very similar in my parents. Like I remember we lived in a trailer, single wide trailer, growing up. And then I guess I was in the second grade, so 92. I'm almost vivid. It was around 92. They purchased a house that my dad passed away back in 2018, but up until then, my mom still lives in the house that I grew up in, and they purchased that back in 92. And I remember that was a big deal whenever we first purchased that home. My dad was like, yeah, we're buying a house, and they actually had to build it, and it's not a big house right now. We're talking about a ranch house in Arkansas, but it was like a big deal to be like living in a house, and I had like so many other people around me that were like still living in trailers and things like that. Like, oh man, we made it.
Yeah,
like, it's 92. My parents, we made it because we got a ranch house that's maybe a 1,200 square feet. So, that it's just so funny. Like, what making it again? We talked about success. Could you have imagined that this would be the house that you would live in, considering where you grew up at?
Right. No, and I think Herb, you're talking about the house that we're in right now. While we record this.
Yeah, it's a studio. We're in Derek's house. It's also partly as our studio right now. So that lets you know how massive this thing is.
Yeah, we got our studio upstairs. So, so no, I mean, I never. I don't think I really did imagine. I never envisioned like, oh, I'm gonna like when I was younger was like this is what it is. But I don't think sometimes you have those people are like, oh, I envisioned myself in a house and like it happened, or I envisioned myself here. Like that's not what happened with me. I think I ended up just stumbling upon this. Like, really, I got lucky with buying a house. I'm going to be dead ass because it was more of like right time, right place, and it just happened to work out. Very happy that I did it. And yes, but when I did it, there was this level of accomplishment that I had. And it was just like this, wow, like I really did this. Like I bought a house on my own. And then it made me think back to those times when we were driving in those neighborhoods and being like, oh, we're going to mind you, those houses were way bigger than this. But I have a pretty good house. I have a pretty good house in Austin.
Absolutely.
But I think for me, what drives this conversation even more, and what fascinates me about this conversation is how for us, like true success was, or you made it was, oh, I got a house.
Yes.
You made it was, oh, I went to college.
Yes.
Right? That was huge.
First male in my family to graduate from college.
I was first generation. That's insane. And it's funny because Herb and I, we were talking about this early before we even started recording, and it was a good segue into what we're talking about here is like, again, going back to the definition of success for Herb and I, like for our families, like we go back home and it's like, yo, you guys fucking made it. You guys are killing it. But like Herb and I out here, you know, sometimes thinking like, are we successful?
Man.
Did we even make it?
Yo.
Like, isn't that shit wild?
On a day-to-day, month-by-month basis, situation-by-situation basis, where I can go into a situation and be like, all right, I'm doing well. Then I can go into another situation and be like, damn, okay.
It's crazy.
Maybe I almost feel like the odd person out here, and that's a crazy thing to think of, the two dichotomies where at one end of the spectrum feel like you're crazy ultra successful to someone, and then on the other end of the spectrum to yourself intrinsically you may feel like you're in a situation like, damn, I'm not anywhere, I'm a failure almost. So it's crazy that we have to I think again that's what brought us here to this podcast and this conversation. And I think there's a lot of people who are in our situations where maybe you were, to your family you seem like something special, or maybe you're extraordinary to your community. However, when you go out into where your reality, where you actually live on a day-to-day basis, you may not feel that way. And I think that's part of This Can't Be Adulting. What are we really signing up for? I thought we were supposed to have this, figure this all out, and it seems like we don't. So,
and it's crazy. It's a little bit sad, but it's also like an understanding of like what conditions did I, when I say conditions, that sounds a little harsh, but like what conditioning has occurred to me that made me believe and feel the way I feel right now about what successful is and what successful isn't, right?
Yep.
So I think it's a great question to go into is like, what was your idea as a child of what adulthood would look like?
Man.
And versus, what you think it was going to look like versus what it is now.
Absolutely. So the boy grew up, I thought Dallas was the city. Like growing up in Arkansas, like Dallas was the big. It may as well have been Tokyo. It could have been New York City. Like to grow up in small town Arkansas, like Dallas was going to the city. And a lot of people still, if you go back right now, Dallas is the city. So
that's how it is in Arkansas?
That's how it is. So I always grew up like thinking like, man, I want to grow up, graduate college, and coach football in Dallas. Like
that's
high school
crazy.
football in Dallas. That was what I thought my life was going to be up until the point I got to college, started playing football. Like, man, there is no freaking way I want to be a grad assistant and do 4 more years of college. The boy had no form of long. I was very short-sighted. So unfortunately, that's when, like, once I got to college, like the whole wanting to be a football coach went out the way, and I was lost as far as what I wanted to do at that point. And this was back, growing up, I was just told, hey, go to college, get a degree, get a job, and you'll be good. So I'm like, all right, well, I'll graduate.
And you'll be happy.
I'll figure it out once I graduate. And that's kind of the mindset I had, unfortunately, graduating college, and then at that point getting out and being like, damn, I don't have anything figured out, and there's no like just go get a job and figure this out at this moment. So like it's a little bit of pressure for the boy coming through that way.
I don't think we're ever prepared for what adulthood really is. There's a funny ass meme that goes on the internet. I know y'all probably seen. Be like, yo, I done been to a lot of hoods, and by far the worst hood is adulthood. And bro, when I tell you that shit speaks to the core, because if you really think about this shit, none of us has to be here. Our parents had sex 40 years ago, and now we out here paying bills, bro. I didn't sign up for this shit.
Don't get me wrong.
There were some good times in there, but like the reality is like nobody signed up for this, and there is no manual. And you are working based off of what you see and what you hear and are told that that success should look like, or that adulthood should look like. For example, when I was younger, I remember thinking, I don't know how old I was when I started thinking this. I said, bet I'm going to go to high school. I'm going to graduate college at 21. I'm gonna get a good job. I'm gonna buy a badass Volvo. Volvo was a car I wanted to get for some reason when I'm 25. When I'm 23. At 24, I'm gonna meet my fiance.
Oh my God.
At 26,
Map
we're
it
gonna
out.
get engaged. At 27, we're gonna get married, and then we're gonna travel the world for 2 years. And at 29, we're gonna start having babies. At 30, we're gonna buy a house.
So how's that going? Just curious. I just want to check these boxes
Exactly,
there.
dog. Exactly. I had this checklist.
Oh yeah.
And if you're a new listener or just don't know us, I'm single. I'm almost 40. I never bought a Volvo. I have traveled. Never been engaged. Never any of that. But like that was to me what I thought adulthood was. You say you about to find someone, you about to meet someone, you're gonna get married, and I thought all this shit was gonna happen in your 20s. Now, I'm not disappointed or upset that it didn't happen.
Right.
I'm sure I could have been married, but like shit changes, man. Well, let me not even say shit changes, but like just reality is reality. And everyone takes their own path.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Everyone takes their own path. I've made mistakes in my life, like 100%. But I think everyone takes their own path, and it's not linear. I think we all have this misconception, as did I, and I sometimes still do, that the path of growth in adulthood is a straight path, incline path all the way up. When in reality, it looks like a jagged staircase. You go up a step, you go down two, you go up a step, you go back, you go this, and that's okay. And that's legitimately okay. But again, because of what's pushed on us by family, by friends, by society, by neighbors, by what you see in pop culture, like there's this fantasy land that you have in your mind about, oh, when I'm an adult, I'm going to be doing this, this, and this. And then you get smacked with the reality of there's a lot of shit that's out of your control.
Oh yeah.
And you just got to try to navigate that. So I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
I feel like, I mean, coming into what I thought I was going to be, and then again, how we got here to where I'm at now, you know, like I said, I thought I was going to be a coach, and then getting into the tech world. I didn't come from a tech background. This never was something I thought of. Now, sales was something that naturally, I don't want to say I was good at, but naturally I was drawn to, just because of anytime you're going through like a job interview, you hear like, oh, why you want to be in sales? And you see a sales force, and they have a lot of either former athletes, sorority, fraternity. Like you know the
Let me interject real quick with a real quick question. Who the fuck have you ever met as a kid when you ask them what they're going to grow up, they said they want to be a salesperson?
Nobody,
dog.
nobody. But if you were smart and you knew what sales, the reason why anybody get into sales is that, man, it's so much money to be made, especially in tech sales here in Austin. And I think once you go down this hole, once we got into it, it's very hard to get out of it and to get away from like the money aspect of it, and not even the money aspect of, just even also the social aspects of it. Like, I mean, you and I met through this tech thing. Like, we're in a city, Austin, where it's very tech focused, it's very tech driven. So like just being involved in the city, socially, being in technology, like all those things, I feel like is kind of how I got here, or kind of how we got here, and kind of like what's success, like how we still judging our lives, and I guess kind of like more so that's kind of how, what the reality of the situation is that we've found myself from where I wanted to be to where I am now.
So that's a good question. I feel like there are two schools of thoughts and two messages that were being delivered to me growing up about our lives' trajectories. And you let me know if you agree with this. I feel like there was the school of thought that we were just talking about, where go get a good job, go make good money, go buy a house, and go be quote unquote successful with wealth. And then on the other hand, you had the fantasy la people, maybe your fifth grade art teacher or people that care for you, that go, no, go follow your passions. Just do what you love to do. And when you love to do, you'll never work a day in your life. And you know what? That sounds fucking great. But the reality is that it's something in the middle, because reality is reality, and not all people can follow their passions and survive. And this is a conversation we're having right now, especially with what's going on in this country right now, which is fucking wild, and we'll talk about it. But like, it's expensive to live.
Oh yeah. Hell yeah.
It's so fucking expensive to live.
Like, yeah. When I tell people like back home what rent in Austin costs, they're like, what?
And wild. And it's not even that bad here compared to other places.
Which I came from LA. I'm like, oh, this is normal.
Yeah.
Like, what are you talking about? This every place I've ever lived as an adult, this is what the rent has been. I haven't lived in Arkansas. I haven't lived in a small town, small city. Like, unfortunately, even in other places in Texas, like Dallas or Houston, like rent's even cheaper there. So like, this is all I've ever known. and it sucks because then you like you feel like you in this you trapped in this game where you're constantly, you're living up to your Joneses and stuff, and because of the situation and the environment
Keeping
that
up
we're
with
in,
the
we gotta
Joneses.
keep up. We gotta, this is our reality. So rent sucks, but what else are you gonna do? Like, this is what everybody's doing. I want to be in Austin. I want to have fun. I want to go out and have a good time with Derek. This is what it would cost.
Yeah, Herb and I went out a couple weeks ago, and
Oh, man,
needless to say, we was out of commission for a good week.
Man.
I can't like we used to.
Do it.
But this is a really good point. Tying this together with what you were just talking about, like the whole, if you were smart, you'd understand why people get into sales. And sure, if you're all about money, but again, I think I started off when we were talking about this episode, kind of introducing myself a little bit about like how my mentality has changed and how I start questioning things, and how we both probably are starting to question things. And I don't want to reveal anything about Herb's personal life that he doesn't want to, but I think it's safe to say Herb and I both are in a position with sales, because we've both been in it around 15 years, I want to say.
Yep.
About 15 years where we're like, fuck, dude, like I really don't want to be doing this shit no more. But life's expensive and sales makes good money, and we've invested 15 years of our lives and our careers in it. Like, how the fuck are we going to transition
Absolutely.
into something else and make enough money to not just survive, but like save for the future?
Yeah. No. That's why we need you to like, comment, and subscribe.
Subscribe
So that we're
to our YouTube channel. Tell your friends about it, dog.
right. But no, but honestly, no, you're absolutely right there. As far as like, man, like once being in this, like this is my, sales is my career, my passion. Like, I don't want to say passion, but like that's my profession. And so doing anything other than that almost seems foreign, even though it's, at this stage in my life, I'm like, man, do I really want to continue to be an account executive here selling tech? Like, what am I I'm not passionate about, and regardless of what anybody tells you that's selling tech, they're not passionate about the technology they're selling.
They're passionate about the money.
To make money.
That's
and
it.
do the next, and that's what we're all doing. So I think, as we're in it, in our professions now, in our careers, like we're kind of at these crossroads where you and I both kind of had these ideas of trying to figure out, like, yo, what do we want to do next?
Yeah.
Like, all right, I done did this sales thing. I got this, I understand what I can get from it, but there is no joy with it. And what I think I want to do next, like, I want it to be meaningful. Like, and I think this is that midlife crisis that we both probably running into. I don't say midlife crisis, but this,
Not there yet.
this adulthood we running into, and why we feel like we don't have it figured out is like, yo, what am I passionate about, and what do I really want to do? Like, what can I do, and what do I want to do?
And that's a good point, because when we're talking about like what are the misconceptions about adulthood, the misconception is that you're going to be happy and figured it out by the time you're at least 40. And dude, like that's not even the case. And I don't mean to say that we're not happy, but like it's tough because you feel this pressure to have it all figured out.
Yes.
I'll sit here by myself and I'll be like, bro, you about to be 40 and like you don't even know what career you really want to do. Like, you don't like sales and you're trying to get out. Like, do you want to be in a relationship? Do you want to be married? Do you want to have kids? Like, it's all these things. And you're like, man, when I was younger, I thought like I would have had this would have been 10 years behind me. You know what I mean? And that's the thing that you get kind of put in your head in the message that's delivered to you when you're younger is that, by the time you're 40, like when we were young, 40 was old.
Man.
40 was old.
Oh, my gosh.
When I was 10, 40 was old. Nah, you old.
My aunts and uncles, if they were doing any of the stuff that I was doing even at 35, I would have been like, they need to sit their old ass down. So like to see us now, now that I'm approaching 40, I'm like, man, I'm still, I'm trying to convince myself in the mirror, I'm still young.
Yeah,
I still got it.
I still got it. We still got a little bit though. As the Delulu. Yeah. But again, I thought it just goes back to like just having it figured out, like having it like my career. Like at the very least, I would have thought I'm gonna be in a career that I know that I'm gonna be in for the rest of my life by the time I'm gonna turn 40. And again, approaching 40 this year. Nope. No idea. I'm in a fucking crisis right now in a transition trying to figure it out. I'm thankful I have a job, but I'm like, I don't want to be doing this shit. Like, I don't want to be doing sales. And so it's interesting. And again, this is why we're doing this podcast, because when I tell you, everyone out there, I don't got this shit figured out.
Now, let me ask you this question. Do you think that if you would have followed and it's hard, I mean, we're going hypotheticals here, but do you think if you did have the kid, the career, the wife, the kid as you had down on paper growing up, do you think that would have been satisfying at this age? Considering if you even look at the people that you've seen who took that route and where
Yeah,
they are,
you're right. It's really hard because I am a firm believer that life happens the way it's supposed to happen. So it's hard for me to even imagine like that would ever be the case. What I will say is that there's a lot of people who I've met, and I know either both extremely personally well or even just as acquaintances that did take that route. And there are very few that are very happy. There are very few that are very happy.
I would agree with that.
Most of them are going through the motions, and that shit is terrifying. And I'm not only just talking about like married and having kids, but I'm also talking about like a career that they've landed on that they just don't leave. And some of them are miserable. And that shit's terrifying. And again, this just goes to show like there is no linear path.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah,
It like even them, they probably thinking, I thought I would have had it figured out. I don't have it figured out. I mean, I got a wife and kids. I got a husband and kids. I got a career, but like, do I even have it figured out?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think what we're trying to bring forth to the table is that like we're all thinking it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like
yes.
we're all thinking
yes.
it. And it's okay. And it's just the best way to try and figure it out is to have conversations, to discuss.
Yeah.
I think a lot of these conversations are, I'm not going to say taboo, but like not enough people and people that are friends have this conversation because you want to put on this this mask.
Yep.
Like, yo, no, we're good. Like, I got this shit figured out. When in reality is, bro, you probably scared of shit just like me, bro.
Yeah, absolutely. And even though all on paper, like you say, all on paper, it looks like you got it all figured out. You absolutely don't. Now, full disclosure, I don't have any kids as well, other than fur babies in a relationship. 2 years, I guess you could say, something like that. And as an account executive, I'm actually in the market right now, looking for what my next career is going to be or my next role is going to be.
So if you're hiring, drop us a comment.
There you go. Yeah, with the salary too. Yeah. Make sure you get the salary on that. Make sure you get my quota now. Get my quota. So yeah, like I mean, just being in this stage now, and kind of seeing this is kind of what it's going to be for me, or this is kind of where we're at. Like, how would you even recommend going about making a change? Like, what would a change look like for you?
So that's a question that I've been asking myself for like 5 or 6 years. And that's an answer that I haven't gotten to yet. And so it is a little bit frustrating. Now, what I will say is the answer is not to not try to do something.
Yep.
And to not try to figure it out. Like baby steps. I've hired a career coach, talked to a career coach, helped me uncover at least a couple of skills and transfers that, talents and skills that I can transfer into maybe some other careers. And I think honestly, what I would recommend too is just having discussions and talking to people. I won't reveal here too much, but I did meet a person in a meditation group that I'm a part of, that heard me talk in a meditation group. And this person was like, reached out to me on the side and was like, yo, I'm actually starting a business. And what you said falls really in line with what I'm looking to do. Would you will be able to have a conversation? So you'll never know when something will come up that might be aligned for what you're looking for. I think you just have to be open for it. And I think you have to be willing to acknowledge and investigate. If you're not happy, like I'm not happy, go try to do something about it.
Yeah. And
maybe you don't figure it out right away. And it's okay because I haven't figured it out. And it can be a frustrating thing. But I think it's more so just admitting it, having open conversations, willing to listen to people that you've never talked to before, and then something might come up.
Now, let me ask, when did it hit that, like, holy shit, I don't think I'm doing this right. I don't think I have it all figured out. Because I will say, when we first met, I thought I had some things figured out.
Yeah.
And it's only as I've gotten older that I realized, like, has it started to hit to where, like, in the last 2 years or so, I'm like, I need to figure this out again. I have no kids. I haven't been married. Like, what am I going to do? I would still want to even, be in this profession. Like, what am I going to do now? And I feel like that pressure kind of like,
yeah,
I don't know where it came.
So good question. So similar to you, I thought maybe when I was in my 20s that I have some shit figured out, but I don't even think it was that more than it was. I wasn't thinking about it like that. I didn't care. When I say I don't care, it's not that I didn't care about my future, but that was the last thing on my mind. What I was worried about was today.
Yep.
And the next week, and that was it.
Yep.
Oh, how can I get through to Friday so I can go out? Because I knew that my job wasn't in jeopardy, because I knew that I was in my late 20s and what I was doing was acceptable, quote unquote, acceptable to what society. When you're in your 20s, you can go out there, be wild. And plus, we lived in Austin, Texas, where everybody's partying. And so everything was more so acceptable. I think for me, when shit started changing was when people around me started slowly going their separate ways and getting married and going and buying houses. And then I hit my 30s and I was like, okay, this isn't happening. So I think I succumbed to the pressures and the keeping up with the Joneses mentality that everybody else was doing, because people that I saw were doing, a lot of them were doing it just to keep up with the Joneses. I and no hate, but I don't believe a lot of them, not all, I don't cast a wide net, but I don't believe a lot of them did it for necessarily the right reasons. And it was just more of like, oh, I feel people were just scrambling. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
And so I started feeling that pressure, but I was like, nah, I'm not doing that shit. I'm not just going to fucking settle. But as I've gotten older, my anxieties have gotten worse and worse and worse, because now I'm like, all right, in the 30s, I can get away with it. Now I'm approaching 40 again. I'm like, fuck, what am I doing, bro? You really about to be alone? Like, we about to be alone? You really about to be in sales for your whole thing? And so, like, again, I'm trying to check myself. But I would say once I hit like around 32, when I moved into this house, is when the real anxieties really started kicking in about shit. And it has gotten progressively worse. I would say my anxiety, full disclosure, I suffer from a lot of anxiety as I've gotten older. But also with age, I've gotten wiser, and I am able to at least rationalize like what's real, like what's a real threat versus what's not.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Like, if you don't end up getting married and having kids, like, you're gonna be fine. Like, you're good, my guy.
Are you sure?
Oh shit, no. Maybe now you got my anxieties up there, but yeah, I would say that was probably it. Probably like around my like 30, 32, 33 when I moved into this house.
Okay, yeah. For me, I feel like, let's say, it was like the last couple of years I started to kind of start feeling that, as I was like, all right, I'm moving out of apartments and now starting like renting homes, and now again we're back to renting like homes, with the girl and stuff like that, and it's like, man, will I ever be able to buy a house in Austin as expensive as it is? Like, if I'm not gonna be buying a house in Austin, then what? Where should I be? Looking at those type of opportunities. So I think in the last 2 years, kind of where it kind of like crept up on me, and I was like, man, I just remember when ignorance was possibly bliss in my early 30s, and I was just out there having a good time. But then, you get to this age right here, and you're like, well, I could have probably been doing a few things different back then that maybe would have helped me out right here, and things could have been different. But here we are.
Here we are, man. Here we are. Well, look, Herb, I think we've had a real riveting conversation today, and introducing the people who may be here, who are listening. I don't know who's going to be this first episode, but this is our first episode. Let's call it something. That's not a pilot, because we're going to keep going, but it is our first episode. And I think it was good giving the people a little bit of a taste of who we are and what we've got going on.
Oh, we got a lot more.
We got a lot more episodes that are be coming out with some great topics ranging from dating in our 30s, 40s.
I got some good advice for you guys when it comes to dating, although I've never been married, no kids.
Yeah, I was gonna say, don't take advice from this guy, bro. Are you kidding me? That's like a butcher telling a pig to come for him for advice. Like, don't go to the butcher, dog. Don't be doing that. We're gonna have conversations about these fucking little Gen Zers and Gen Xers too, and how they be living.
Some family members are gonna get on so hard.
We've got a lot of shit that we're gonna touch on, but I know one of the things that we're gonna try to incorporate within our episodes is talk about what we learned this week about adulting that we didn't know before. And maybe it wasn't this week, obviously it doesn't have to be this week, but like each one of us talking about, like, what I just learned this week, that stupid saying that goes out there. Like, I was 2 years old. We're not gonna say it like that, but like, what was something you learned about adulting recently that you want to reveal to our listeners here today?
Yeah, I think again, we're going to get into politics and things like that come forward. But I think the big thing is, I think the buzzword around here is tariffs. I done went down a rabbit hole on what the hell tariffs are, how far they go back, why they got started, how they get applied, who pays for them, all those types of things. And just really just, like, from my understanding of it, like, we really don't know. It depends on who you ask. Tariffs, obviously, from the definition standpoint of it, is just a tax that's imposed by the import or the country that the goods are being imported into. Now, who pays for this? That's where we get into the whole depends on what news channel you're watching. But but just going down the rabbit hole of tariffs and how they are going to quote unquote impact my life. And as I'm looking at the red on the stock market, I'm going, what the hell is going on? Please don't let this be. And we'll see how this all thing plays out. But I'd love to hear you guys' a feedback on tariffs and kind of what side of the aisle you fall on. But that's been the thing I've learned here recently as adulting, tariffs and how they play an impact into my everyday social life as of right now.
Fucking tariffs. I hear you on that.
How about yourself?
For me, what I actually learned, because we're in tax season right now, I think everyone's taxes to do.
I'm still waiting.
Next week, I file my taxes right away in January.
You're going to learn that Derek is so disciplined and structured, and your boy over here is the opposite of discipline and structure. So that's
this is why this works.
This is why
this works, bro. The yin and the yang. It's true. I'm very structured and disciplined from that perspective. But something that I did learn that actually grinds my gears about taxes is, and maybe this is obvious to y'all, but obviously doing your taxes, all of that is just a complete fraud. It's all
oh my gosh
a money grab, and no, not a money grab from the government necessarily, but the government has all of your tax information. Yeah. So they don't need to ask you to do your taxes when they have it. But the tax industry has been privatized. That's why you got H&R Block, TurboTax. They have some of the most lobbyists on DC lobbying congressmen to say, hey, people got to do their taxes so they can pay us to do the taxes. So now there's this whole tax industry, because if you go to the Nordic countries, Sweden, Norway, Finland, they don't have any of that because the government has it. So when it's tax season, the government audits your taxes because they already have your information. They go, oh, you actually owe us blah, 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 or, oh, we owe you this much. Here you go, boom, boom. So you don't have to worry about filing taxes in any of those countries. But here you do, because these goddamn TurboTaxes and HR Black are lobbying Congress so that you can give them money to do your taxes. Isn't that shit fucking wild?
Well, hey, Derek, we're a service country.
Yeah.
Look about the jobs being created.
Exactly. We're at the jobs.
You want to send those jobs? Are you trying to send those jobs elsewhere? He's anti-American, you guys. He's anti-American. But no, you're absolutely right on that. That's crazy that they have all the information, and yet we still have to go through this pony and dance trick and pay somebody, some type of fee for them to go and do something that we can easily do. That could be done for us, not easily do. That should be done for us as we're paying the government.
Yeah.
We're giving you the money. Why can't you?
And to your point, I know you were joshing. I've never used that word in my life. But I know you were joking about well, what about jobs? Well, if the government does your taxes, that will create jobs in the government.
I'm not going to go into jobs in the government right now.
We can't do that.
That's a hot topic, and we at the end of this show. But, apparently some people would say that if you gave jobs to the government, it may not get
It'd be waste.
Some people would say, I'm not saying me, I'm just saying some people would say that.
Conversation for the day. Herb, man. Like I said, it's been great here. Is there any last final thoughts you want to leave our crew here, our wonderful fans and listeners?
Hey, guys, thank you. This goes out to, I can't wait to look back on this and see, who our day ones are, and just laugh at this and look back at this with joy down the road. So please stay with us. Definitely looking forward to having more conversations with you guys, with Derek, and really connect with you guys.
Yeah, we love that. Yeah, thanks you all. And please leave us a comment. Let us know what you thought. Suggestions, recommendations for topics. We'll all be here. This will be, obviously, if you're watching this, is because you're a YouTube follower, but we'll also be uploading this to where all podcasts can be uploaded, Apple, Spotify, wherever those other ones are. We got to look into that. But I appreciate y'all listening, Herb. Always a pleasure. My guy.
Doing this.
This can't be adulting.
This can't be adulting.